pleased to have our house chef. Tonight she is going to do a mixture. Some people like vegetarian, some people don't like the quail. So at least she's accommodating both of you. I'll introduce you Chef Joanie, and please welcome her.
Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. Yes, I offered a vegetarian option because I didn't want people not coming because they thought they didn't like quail. So that's really the main reason why I did it. I didn't want to have 7 people come to the cooking class. I wanted this. So our first appetizer I'm doing tonight it's an appetizer. It's a black bean slider. I make delicious black bean burgers. And I try everything that I do in these classes when I do them out here. I do one a year. And I try to make it something that anybody, if they are so inclined, could go home and duplicate it. And we're going to get started here. So what I have in my food processor here is some, there we go, tortilla chips, Tostitos. You know, it says an ounce. It's probably a little bit more than that. And so I just pulse these. Get them pretty smashed up. A little trick about this too, I did a wedding out here a few weeks ago, and I had come up with a Tex-Mex meatball because the theme for the wedding was Tex-Mex. And I did a Tex-Mex meatball. And those of you that cook know that you usually make a panade. That's when you mix the milk and the breadcrumbs or something to add into your meatball mixture because it helps keep them more tender. The culinary term for that is panade. But the bride was gluten-free. And though when I had done the menu for her, I put not gluten-free next to it just so she would know. But when I started to make them, I went, well, wait a minute. Why can't I do to these what I do with my black bean burgers? So I made a panade out of the crushed up tortilla chips because it works so well with the Tex-Mex flavorings. I thought I was pretty genius with that, and it did work well. So they're not completely chopped up, but they're close enough. And so what I have in this little guy here is the spices, the cilantro, the green onion, and the garlic. Okay. And I'm going to really go to town on this one. Because I hate chopping. For chef, that's not a good thing to not like to do. I love my food processor. It is the most used appliance in my home. I have 3 bowls. Other than one cheese shredder on it, it's the center blade that I use all the time. So these guys are pretty well chopped up. So now I'm going to add the black beans. This is a half a recipe. That's what I did here. And it says on there, I think, to pulse them just a little bit till they just start to break up a little bit. And then take those out. Okay, good enough. And next, just mix the egg in. And then I always I have different size cookie scoops, ice cream scoops. And depending on what I'm making will dictate what size I pull out of the drawer. When you guys get your little sliders, it's not the smallest one, the one that I usually use when I'm making cookies. It's the next size up. And there you go. I would normally, even though it doesn't say it in the recipe, I'd probably stick this in the fridge for a little while just because everything's at room temperature right now. I did drain the beans, rinse them, and put them on a paper towel to dry them for a little bit. But again, I don't get crazy about that. And then, so for the sliders, there you go. That's it. And then the way I assemble them, I made a little burger sauce. You can do whatever you want with burger sauce. Basically, either you don't have a recipe for it, but it's equal parts mayonnaise and ketchup, and then whatever else you want in there. I did a little relish, pickle relish. If you like spicy, I would do throw in some sriracha or gochujang or whatever flavor profile you like. If it wasn't vegetarian, I would add Worcestershire sauce. For those of you that don't know, Worcestershire sauce is anchovies in it, so it's not vegetarian. So there is no Worcestershire sauce in these guys. So, and I have not found a substitute. You just omit it. Then I've got some pickled red onion. I didn't do too many on there. And then I love these guys, the crunchy onions, the French fried onions. And I like Publix brand better than French's. I really do. I think they're tastier and they're crunchier. And then there you go. If you wanted, like you're doing this at home and you want to put some cheese on it or anything like that, you can. I'm also all about the bread to meat ratio. I pulled the filling out of the top, the stuffing out of the top of these little slider buns as best I could with them being so little. I do that when I do regular burgers. I do that with everything. So, and that's the assembly, and they'll be coming around with those in just a minute for you guys. But do you have any questions about this? I know some of you go, I don't like cilantro. Don't put it in. There's no substitute for it. When there's other cooking and you don't want cilantro, don't do parsley. I call it the Thai Trinity, is a cilantro, mint, and basil. So you could just do mint and basil. Not in this, but you know, depending on what you're cooking, that's what I would do, is do, you know, mint and basil instead of cilantro. Yes? Oh, thank you very much. I sauteed them in a skillet with just a tiny bit of oil, and a nonstick skillet with a tiny bit of oil, and I had a boatload. And I made like 60 of these guys, so I did them in like 3 batches in my large nonstick skillet. And I made these the day before yesterday, so I did not freeze them. But I have one of my clients has me make her a batch regular size, and they freeze beautifully after cooking. You can freeze them before, but I wouldn't. I go ahead and, because you want to get that little sear on them so that they stay formed. And you can freeze them and then microwave them. Pickled onions, what type of acid did I use? The classic, I did some, any kind of vinegar you want. Red wine vinegar is what I usually have around the most abundant and least expensive. A little bit of sugar and a little bit of salt. And I just heat that in a saucepan just to get the granulated stuff to mix in. And then you can pour it on hot or you can let it cool and pour it on. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what color I use. This is a red onion, but you know when you cut them, they're not that red. And it doesn't matter what vinegar I use, they always turn red. It's got to have something to do with the oxidation or something when I don't know the whole science behind that. So that's how I pickled them. Yep. I think the question was, would I put these on the grill or would they fall apart? I think they would fall apart. I wouldn't want to risk it. Plus, I don't know how Teflon-y your grill grates are. I know they'd stick to mine. Though one of the things I do, which you probably shouldn't do when I'm doing stuff, is I pan the food. Like I'll have them on a cookie sheet and I'll just hit them with pan before I throw them on the grill. It goes a long ways towards helping them. See, I told you there's lots of other things. Yes, ma'am. I have not tried it, but there's no reason not to. Would I bake them? I haven't tried baking them, but there's no reason not to. I think you could be successful with that. But the nonstick skillet, you really don't need that much oil. It's almost like you're making pancakes. You know how little oil you put in it if you put pancakes in? It's like a big teaspoon in like your typical 10-inch or 12-inch skillet, as long as it's nonstick. And by the way, your nonstick skillets are not designed to last forever. Don't spend the big bucks. I buy OXO. Good grips. Their new ones have handles that can go in the oven. You just have to plan on replacing it every couple of years. And the OXO was, the last time I bought it, I think it was $45. And it lasts a couple of years. And they can go in the oven now. So it's not a plastic handle anymore. So, okay. All right. I don't have one of those, so I don't know. Probably would work very well in the air fryer. The question was, could they go in the air fryer? I would imagine they could. I mean, you can do steak in the air fryer, so yeah, there's no reason why these guys wouldn't work in the air fryer. Yeah. I live in an 1,100 square foot home, and I'm the master of small spaces, but I'm very selective about what appliances are in my house, and I just don't have a place to put all that stuff. I would buy not an Instant Pot, a pressure cooker would be the one thing that I would buy if I was trying to fit something in, and I just don't need it enough to warrant it. I do have a sous vide, but mine is the Joule, which is the size of a ruler, so it fits in my drawer. And other than it has the highest rating, that was one of the reasons why I bought it also, is I could stick it in my drawer. Yes? What you do is, it's a typical quick pickle is what it's called. And any kind of vinegar, I tend to use red wine vinegar the most, but you can use any kind of vinegar. And then you put it on a heat to it with a little bit of sugar and a little bit of salt until it all melts, all the granules dissipate and mix in. Then you can take it off the heat. It doesn't have to be hot. You just want to get it so that everything liquefies. And then you pour it over whatever you're pickling. And they went in the fridge. And it can live in the fridge like that for a couple of days. But the quick pickle, if you're in a hurry, you can do it in like 15 minutes. So that's why it's called a quick pickle. Yeah. Squash bisque. All pumpkins are squash. All squash is pumpkin. Diane used to grow them. So what I did with the squashes, I bought them at Sprouts. I found some nice squashes, some whole big pumpkins at Sprouts. And I did try throwing a whole one in the coals. Eric is our grill guy, built the grills, and he loves me because I gave him a Thermapen thermometer. So he's like my favorite chef because I turned him on. The Thermapens are just, instant reads are just amazing. But anyhow, when I was here not too long ago, he said something about throwing the whole thing in the coals. And I said, that's a really good idea. I'll try it. It's not. It didn't work the way I wanted it to. But I was able to, I just cut them, because they're dangerous to cut. And I have a pretty good cleaver, but they're still kind of dangerous. So I can't stand peeling. So I did just cut them. Peeling and chopping are... So I just cut them in either half or quarters, and they were pretty decent-sized pumpkins. And then that mixture there that it has in the recipe for the roasted winter squash recipe tells you about the balsamic vinegar and the molasses and the spices and all that stuff. I did drizzle that all over them, and then when they were done, I just scraped them. I scraped the seeds out, and then I scraped them out of the skin. And then I put them in my food processor, not the blender. I think it says blender. And I think it also says strain. Didn't happen. But I like texture. It's pretty smooth, but it's not as creamy as a typical bisque would be without any... There's no chunks in it, but you'll see when you get it, there's some texture. So I didn't think you needed me demonstrating any of that stuff, so I'm going to show you how to toast seeds and nuts. So I have pumpkin seeds, bottom of Publix. I did throw in the toasted spice blend on top of them, which I think that's in this. Oh, is it in this, or it might be in the cornbread recipe. And nuts, quite often, if I'm doing a lot of them, I'll do them in the oven. And as soon as you smell them, take them out. Seeds are a little more delicate, so I tend to do those in a skillet. And they're nice because you saw everything went in here dry. The oil from the pumpkin seeds will come out a little bit, and everybody will have a nice little party in here. But they do take a few minutes. I'm going to turn this sucker up. Is that up or down? That's up. Okay. So the pumpkins that I use to make this biscuit, you can use any pumpkin. You can use butternut. That's pretty much the most common. Try not to buy the already peeled stuff. They treat it to keep it so it stays not funky. So try not to buy it. Now, delicata squash, it's not going to work for the soup, but just roasting it, you can eat the skin on that. That's one of the things I love about Diane's calabaza. We can eat the skin on that. Kabocha squashes, you can eat the skin on that. Butternut, I've eaten the skin on, but I have to slice it pretty thin before I roast them. And I do love roasted squash. It is one of my favorite things in the world to eat. And I eat them year round, even though they're technically a winter vegetable. Because when I'm talking about these, they are the winter hard squashes. It's not the zucchini and yellow squashes, is what I'm referencing. So, while these guys are doing their thing, I'm going to show you how I plate. I can see the oils coming out of them now. I don't know if you can see them getting a little shiny in there. So this stuff is really rich, so I'm not being stingy. You get a lot more food coming. So I'm not being stingy. I'm doing one ladle. I'm going to do a little dollop. It's not mascarpone. I mixed sour cream with heavy cream, mostly sour cream, because the soup is it's sweet from that spice blend and from that whole thing. So it needed a little acid, so I didn't mind that. And then these are ones that I already toasted. A couple little, and then this is pumpkin seed oil. Just a little drizzle. And that's how I would plate that. Oh yeah, I can start to smell them now. Oh, they're popping. I don't know if, can you hear them popping? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's called done. You can do this with sesame seeds if you want to, and toast your own sesame seeds. I do a wonderful little appetizer with seared tuna that I mix black and white sesame seeds and just buy the bricks of tuna. You know what I'm talking about when I talk about the bricks of tuna? Okay, for those of you that don't, I use Tasha Seafood is where I get my seafood. I live in Stewart, so I go to Tasha Seafood. She has them, but also the Welcome Oriental Market over the Roosevelt Bridge in Emerald Plaza. He makes his own sushi there too, by the way. They come in bricks. They're probably about 4 inches wide, about 1.5 inches tall, and probably 8 inches long, about that range. They're frozen. They're delicious. They're beautiful pink. And I buy those. I slightly defrost them in the fridge. I cut them into logs. And then I just roll them in the mixture of black and white sesame seeds, and I throw them in a dry skillet and sear them on each side. Slice them, serve them on a rice cracker with yuzu aioli. If you're coming to my dinner April 10th, that is one of the past appetizers. They're delicious. They are delicious. But that tuna is just to die for. So it's got a certain name to it. I can't remember what it is. Radicchio salad with feta, pistachios, and a honey cream. So what I did with this one, so I take the radicchio, here we go, which is a little bitter. I like it. Diane's are exceptional. Just got the bottom off, cut it in half, core it. Yeah, that one came out nicely. And then I chop it. I am not a CIA chef. I am self-taught. go. And then I put all these guys in the bowl. And then you've got the recipe. It's the feta brine. I buy my feta at Planet Ozone. For those of you who live in Stewart, that's the Sunoco station on US 1 across the street from the bowling alley. So for those of you that live south, I'm not familiar with where you would get the different fetas. I'm guessing at the Middle Eastern market that's down on 5th Street. But they have, I know Planet Ozone, for those of you that live up this way, that store is amazing. Amazing. They carry everything. When nobody could get flour, they had tons. But they have a lot of different kinds of feta. They have Bulgarian feta, French feta, and it's not nearly as salty as what you're used to buying in the grocery store, as you will see on the salad tonight. And so this is what was left from what I brined for dinner. So I just strained it out, and you cover up and you let it soak for, it says 15 minutes. I let it go for a couple hours. And you should weight it down with a plate or something so it stays submerged. Okay, so you soak that. Then when you're ready, the trusty salad spinner, we're going to pretend. It helps take some of the bitterness out, and it gives it a little feta flavor to it as well. Okay, all right, there we go. And then I still put it in paper towels to let it dry out a little bit more. And then we toss it with the salad dressing, which I will show you right now. But it does help take some of the bitterness out. You can do this with any of the heartier lettuces. Okay. Good. That. And then this is salted honey. You have the recipe. It's pretty much equal parts honey, oil, and then a little bit of salt. And it does not like to stay together. Kai Kai Farms honey. It's wildflower honey. So here's the, there we go. Just tossing all the radicchio in there. You could do other stuff in this too. And then after I get the arugula, I'll plate it. Got the feta already crumbled. And then the honey cream. And all I did was mix the honey with heavy cream. Very complicated. This stuff is, oh my God. There's so many things that you could do with this stuff. Wait till you get your salad. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's just, oh my God. You'd be able to do the endive also if you wanted, if you're not a radicchio lover. I'd like to, I haven't tried it yet. I think grilling the radicchio and then tossing it in the salted honey, I think that would be to die for. Thank you. If you haven't had Diane's arugula, you've never had arugula. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's just totally amazing. It's so peppery. There we go. Okay. So, hold on the plate. I'm going to do two because we have one nut allergy in the room, and so I don't want to touch the nuts until after I do her plate. Okay. So then I would probably do the pistachios next, and then just a little bit of the feta. And then this honey cream, just a little drizzle. All right. I'm going to show how to stuff any kind of poultry, but specifically a quail today. But I'm going to show you worth the cost of admission. The crunchy olives first. I roasted the broccoli and I grilled it. First of all, I microwaved it for 4 minutes in a Pyrex dish. I told you my next class is going to be strictly out of the microwave. But broccoli, it comes out perfectly crisp tender. I put it in a Pyrex dish. I cover it in film. I take the round thing that goes around out so that I can fit my thing in there. It's not banging against the sides. And I microwave it for 4 to 6 minutes, depending on what I'm doing. The broccolini that we have tonight was 4 minutes. Regular broccoli, I'll break it down a little bit, but I may go 6 minutes on that. I put it on a cookie sheet so it completely cools off. And then when I'm ready, I hit it on a charcoal or a gas grill, either one. Take some of the grassiness out of the taste that broccoli can sometimes have. And when it came out, while it was hot, it came off the oven. I tossed it in lemon oil and just a little bit of salt because of what I'm putting on top of it tonight is salty. If I wasn't putting on top of it what I'm putting on tonight, I would have added a little more salt. So, but this lemon oil, all the oil and vinegar stores have them. I got this from the one that's in the Regency Plaza. I don't think it's called that anymore, but those of you who've been around a while know what I'm talking about. But I think I've even seen this in the grocery store, like California Olive Company or something like this. Not Olive Ranch, but one of those, Napa. I've seen it in the grocery store. Not this particular one, but they have a lemon-infused oil. But let me talk about these crunchy olives. These things are addictive, and I don't like olives. Listen to when I throw these in the pan. You can hear how crunchy they are, right? I microwaved them. On a towel, I'm serious. On a paper towel for 2.5 minutes, checking them about every 30 seconds or so and stirring them around. I bought dry cured olives. They come in a jar at Publix. They have them, I think, on the Olive Bar at Fresh Market. I chopped them up roughly, microwaved them. They crisped up. I chopped them up finer. And now I'm going to add some lemon zest. But these things are to die for. But you don't even have to add the lemon zest. These things are just, oh my God. And I don't like olives. So, every piece of citrus that enters my house gets washed and zested. And then frozen. The zest gets frozen. Nothing ever, right? I mean, and then I think about, when I need to juice it. But another thing that if those of you have been to my classes before, you've heard me talk about this, they have it at Fresh Market, Volcano lemon juice. It's in the produce section in the refrigerator where all the juices are. It's fresh lemon juice. It's not the concentrate, it's not the little squeezy lemon thing. It's delicious. I keep it in my fridge. And then for those of you that go to Doris's, worth the trip, for those of you that don't live down there, they have Natalie's lemon juice and lime juice. So, and I have those I have Natalie's lime juice in my fridge. So yeah, they're delicious. So that's the crunchy olives. They're going to go on top of the broccolini tonight, but Jackie's going to make these and put them out on her next wine pop-up because they're to die for. So now that because I didn't want to be playing with those with raw poultry. I get my boneless semi-boneless quail. Okay, I get them from D'Artagnan. They're out of New York. The only bones in these guys are in their legs or their wings. See how flat they are? Okay. Yep. And find an opening. That does. Wait till I'm done with it. And then this is some of the dressing. The dressing on the in the quail is different than the dressing that's on the eggplant. Okay. This is a chorizo cornbread dressing. It's the same cornbread, but I sautéed the vegetables with chorizo, Spanish chorizo. And if you get the uncured one, you don't have to skin it. That's PIA, to skin them. Telling you. It's, again, doesn't chop, doesn't peel. They buy the uncured. The eggplant cornbread dressing it's a different recipe. You have it. The one thing that's not on that recipe is to mix it with cornbread. So, who knew? I'm the only one who put them together and printed them out. So yeah, it's lacking the directions to mix it with the cornbread. It's the same treatment to the cornbread. I made the cornbread, I cut it into cubes, I toasted it in the oven. This quail dressing has my homemade chicken stock mixed in it. The eggplant has the vegetable stock mixed in it, okay? And on that note, I've talked to you about also that I save all the peelings and all that kind of stuff, not peppers. They add a bitter flavor to your stock. But chicken, I save rotisserie chickens. When on the occasions that I make chicken wings, I separate the flats from the drums, and I have the perfect mate because he likes the drums and I like the flats. But I take the wings off; those go in my bag. I have a bag in the freezer of chicken parts. When I do boneless, skinless chicken, I call them boneless, tasteless chicken breasts. But when I get those, I get them from my butcher, and he, trims them. And he saves the trimmings for me. All of that stuff goes in my freezer bag, and then I make stock with it. So I've found a little hole here. He's chest down. And I'm stuffing them. They don't take very much. Okay. And you could stuff any bird this way. I made this dressing for Thanksgiving one year and did it on turkey that I actually did a citrus brine to. And this dressing, the chorizo, it was Jose Andres' recipe, I think. So there we go. And then, and I think it says to tie the legs. That's the way I think of it, okay? You just kind of put the legs crossed. And that's how I put them on the cookie sheet and cooked them. You can do any cornbread recipe. You could buy cornbread already made and cube it. You have to toast it. It makes a difference. I have tried skipping that step. Not a good idea. I ended up with paste. Paste. Yeah, it didn't keep its integrity. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to heat my cream because I'm making the ganache. This is just some 60% dark chocolate. And you've got the recipe there. I think it says like 3 ounces of chocolate and 2/3 of a cup heavy cream or something like that. So I'm just going to bring that to boil. I'm doing it first so it can sit for a little bit while I make the mousse. That was quick. Just pouring it over the chocolate. I'm going to ignore it for a minute. To let it start to melt the chocolate. So in the meantime, I'm going to make the mousse. I already mixed together. This actually is made with tahini, this one that I'm doing here, because of the nut allergy. So because I'm doing everything, I didn't want to take any chances here tonight. So I made the filling already. I mixed it with the cream cheese, and it was pretty much equal parts tahini as the recipe calls for peanut butter. And let's say you don't want to make your own mousse, or you don't want to do that. Very, very simple. And actually this, I didn't even get out my mixer. I did it by hand in a bowl. The tahini, but tahini's a little more forgiving than peanut butter. Tahini, and it was peanut butter, tahini, cream cheese, and a little bit of powdered sugar. You will find this dessert, I like what I call desserts for adults. They're not cloyingly sweet. And then this is my whipped cream, so this is what I'm making is a little sweeter. I make whipped cream if you do 5 ounces of sugar to 2 cups of heavy cream. The whipped cream will stay like this for a week. It's sweeter, but it doesn't deflate. That's on top of yours. With the mousses I made for you guys to eat, I did not do that. Okay, it was just regular, just whipped cream. So then I'm going to just fold this in. Oh, I think it said to put half of it in first. I did do that when I make them. I'm not doing it now, but I should have. Because when you do half of it, it lightens it up without deflating it. And so I'm going to show, making this, and I'm going to show assembly. So I'm, just gently folding this in. That's what that's called. You cut and roll it over. It's called folding. And you could make this several days ahead and assemble them and have them in your fridge. Let's say you're having a dinner party. I made these yesterday, but it's just because I didn't have fridge space and I was too busy to make them sooner, or else I would have. Now I'm going to finish this puppy. It should be ready to go. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't completely, you put it in a glass bowl and put it in what appliance? So you can see that's done. It's a happy camper. Which one has a smaller opening? They're about the same. So I get these pastry bags. You can get them up at Joanne's or Michael's. You can get them online. Just makes assembly a lot easier. And you really don't want to fill them more than halfway, because it's just easier to manage. So I put them in, these are our water glasses, which I thought would be perfect for this. But I would love to see these, like if it was a smaller group and we had them, martini glasses would be beautiful for something like this. Stemless wine glass. I mean, you're not limited. So there's that. Probably do a little more. You'd never know I was a math major. It's atrocious. You should. Everybody's is a different size, just so you know. No surprises when it comes to you today. And I'm not being facetious. I was a math major. Okay. So this would have been better to sit a little longer, but that's okay. And then tilt it around a little bit. And then a little more. And then a little more. Refrigerate that for a couple hours because the ganache will harden. And the mousse and all of that will do its thing. And then whipped cream and toasted cocoa nubs. There you go. It's pretty, isn't it? And it's hopefully it tastes as good as it looks. You probably could do this if, for those of you that really don't want to have to make anything, you could probably make this with pudding and mix it with the whipped cream to lighten it up, and do the same thing as opposed to, you know, if you didn't want to do the cream cheese, butter, powdered sugar thing. You probably could buy, like, you know, a box of pudding and make the pudding and do the same thing. It would be delicious. Just lighten it up with the whipped cream. That'll give you the same moussey texture. I got the cocoa nibs from Castronovo chocolate, and I toasted them in the oven. I put them just on a cookie sheet with parchment at like 350 till they started to smell like brownies, and pull them out. And you got to be quick because they burn very quickly. They're not sweet. It's like unsweetened cocoa. They're delicious, I think. I think they complement something like this very nicely. And they, you know, we hardly used any because you don't want a whole lot on it. I wouldn't snack on these. They're just not sweet enough to snack on for me. But thank you so much, everybody. I really, really appreciate y'all coming out and supporting me with this tonight. I love it. Obviously, you can tell. I really, really enjoy teaching. Yes. Okay, the question is these fancy oils, how long do they last? They always have to be refrigerated. You cannot leave, once you open them, you have to refrigerate them. And they will last a very long time in your refrigerator. You don't have to worry about it. If you don't refrigerate them, they will go rancid probably within a month. And they're not inexpensive. They're not ridiculous, but they're not inexpensive. So, yeah, and it's nice. I call them finishing oils because you just do that little drizzle to finish. It's like Malden sea salt is one of my favorite things on the planet. It's a finishing salt because it stays nice and crunchy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a specific sea salt, Malden, M-A-L-D-O-N. I know my butcher sells it, but I think I've actually seen it at Fresh Market also, or you can get it online. It's a crunchy, flaky salt, and I finish every steak gets finished with that. Jackie's amazing bread I put out with Plugra butter and Malden sea salt sprinkled on top. I can make a meal out of that. So just, pardon? I use the butcher shop in Stewart, Bobby Kennedy at the butcher shop. He's in that same Publix Plaza that I shop at there that's on Canner and US 1. Question was, what cut do I buy? Do I buy choice or prime or what? It depends on what I'm doing, but I tend to buy prime or the Wagyu because I have found, again, depending on the cut, like the Wagyu short ribs, they're boneless. When I get the bone-in short ribs, yeah, they're cheaper, but it ends up with, after I cook them in the yield, it's about the same. And I don't have to bone them, and it's just tastes better. The question is, what's confit? Confit is the method of cooking. It gets cooked, duck legs would get cooked in duck fat, though I've done it in pork fat. And you can't tell the difference because it's more about the way it's cooked. And it keeps it super moist, super tender. And you can leave it actually in the pan. Let's say because they're submerged in whatever fat you're cooking them in. And you could leave them in there in the fridge for months because it's a preservative also. So that's, and I've confit, I learned from Lindsay Autry because I come to the classes here too. Lindsay Autry, I think 2 years ago, we confit garlic and shallots. And we just did that in olive oil. And I still have some, that's been in my fridge forever. And I pull it out sometimes if I'm in a hurry for the garlic. I buy the the whole peeled garlic in the produce section at the grocery store. First of all, it's domestic. Most of our garlic comes from China, in case you didn't know that. It'll say packaged in the United States, but it's coming from China. It's not coming from Gilroy. But the stuff that they carry that's in the produce section of Publix, it's already peeled. It is domestic. and I leave it in the freezer. Because I'm not using it that fast, but it's fine. My sister goes, well, it gets mushy. And I said, but it doesn't change the flavor. So I'm not eating the thing raw anyhow. So I don't care if it's a little mushy. And it's actually, for if you're going to slice it, it's easier. You pull it out of the freezer, and in like, a couple of minutes, you can slice it. And it's easier to slice it than if it was just refrigerated or not. So it's just a lot easier. And it's cheap, and unless I'm doing whole roasted garlic heads, which are wonderful. I haven't bought a whole head of garlic except for that in years, because I just keep those whole peeled ones in my freezer. You just have to remember to pull them out, a little early in your recipe, so that they defrost. Anything else? Well, again, thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. Let's see.